So as we can see here, Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra is a rare expert on Korean politics and so on. So without further ado, let me invite Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra to make his presentation now. Dr. Sandip Kumar Mishra, please.
Thank you, Professor O. Thank you, Professor Khan. And thank you to all the friends for actually giving me this opportunity to speak in front of all of you who have been actually working constantly for peace and reconciliation for years. It's my pleasure to share my understanding about Korea and East Asia through my today's lecture. I'll share my screen.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you make it bigger, please?
Now it's okay?
Yeah, full screen. You can make it like
Now it's okay? You can see my full
It's
screen?
okay.
Not yet,
It's okay.
not yet full screen. Just slide show, kinds of like make it full screen.
I did it, but I don't know.
Okay, still is okay. Try
Okay.
one more time. Try one more time.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Can you listen? Yes.
Now we are not able to see the slides.
Yeah, now I think.
Coming.
It's okay. Can you see it?
Okay. Maybe that's the largest size, I think.
Yeah, will you turn here in the down there like a screen, full size screen, make it full size screen?
I don't know, but somehow it's not.
The right side down there, down the corner is like make it full.
I have been trying, but I think
Okay,
in my computer it looks full.
Okay. Yeah, sounds okay.
Anyway, so basically the topic of my presentation is going to be historical reflections and regional stability, the Korean Peninsula's role in shaping East Asia future. I will begin with this picture. I think you can see. In the first slide, I have taken 3 quotations, which are basically.
Excuse me. Why don't you click the screen show, slide show? Then it will make bigger.
Yeah, here slide show on the menu slide show.
Yeah,
right?
here menu.
Yeah, PPT
Slide show.
Over on the menu.
Here.
Right. You can see slide show.
Slide show.
Yeah, on the first line, the menu, right? Animation, slide show, review.
Slide show.
Yeah, right. Slide show. Okay, right.
Next. Okay, here.
That one.
And from the beginning, you can click. Yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
From the beginning, click here.
Click.
I clicked.
Oh, really?
I clicked, and in my computer, my laptop is showing that it's full screen.
Okay.
Acha, we can do one thing, Professor Kang. You have my file.
Yeah. Shall I?
You can share. Yeah.
Okay. Let me. Okay. Wait a second. Okay. History. Okay, here. Okay. Yeah, I have it. Okay. Let me try. Okay. Okay, here. Okay, here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, and here slide show.
처음부터, yes, from the beginning.
Is it okay?
That's right. Yes, bigger. Yes, much better.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. My apology for inconvenience. So next slide, sir.
Okay.
So as you can see, I have basically selected 3 statements which are being given at the at the three junctures of Korean history or East Asian history. The first quotation I would read, Korea had been trading through an important phase of external changes in which it has to choose its options very carefully. Although China is still an important country in East Asia, rise of Japan and Western interests in the region have created a complex scenario for Korea. If Korea is not able to make wise choices in the complex scenario, it would have to face its consequences. The second statement says, Korea doesn't like to choose one country over other. Rather, it would like to focus on its own strength and nation building. The third statement is advisable that Korea must avoid taking side in the US-China contest, as our interests are limited to both the countries. Why I selected these three statements? Because these three statements, they are basically representing three different time episodes in Korean history and East Asian history. The first statement was, it was in late 19th century when China's influence in East Asia was on decline, Japan was emerging, and Western powers, they were also coming to East Asia. Even Russia was also interested in East Asia. So there was a first episode of big changes happening in Korea. And that's one sentiment which was there in Korea at that point of time. The second statement comes from another important episode in East Asian history, and that was around end of Cold War. And then also Korea had to think about at least two different countries, like two different groups, one led by United States, another led by Soviet Union. In that time also, there was contest happening in East Asia. And the third statement is more contemporary. In last 10, 15 years, you can see there's a great power rivalry happening in East Asia, and that is between US and China. So my point is that whenever there are big changes happening in East Asia region, I think we need to, in the region of Korea Peninsula and around that area, I think there are big, important and difficult debates happening in Korea. So I wanted to, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, now you can see these are again two cartoons. First cartoon actually is about, again, late 19th century, when Korea was basically in, like between China and Japan. Both of them, they were trying to pull Korea towards their own side. And the second cartoon is basically around Second World War, when I think several countries, they were trying to decide fate and future of Korea. Next slide, please. So on that basis, when I look at Korea, there's a very interesting sentence which I found in the book written by a very famous journalist who later on became professor at Johns Hopkins University, Don Oberdorfer. He wrote a book called The Two Koreas, and he has given a very interesting statement saying that Korea is a country of wrong size located at a wrong place in the map. What did he mean by that? Next slide. He meant was that if you look at East Asia, you realize that there are big countries surrounding Korea. For example, you can see China, which is having 1.4 billion population, Japan, which is having 126 million population, Russia, again, 146 million population. And also, all these countries have huge land mass also. You can see the last column. So in comparison to all these countries, Korea is a small country. So this is probably what the problem which Dom Oberdorfer was talking. He was saying that it's a country of wrong size. Wrong size means it's relatively small in East Asia, and that gives lots of problems. Next slide, please. And that's why you can see that Korea is also, this image is also quite popular, that shrimp surrounded by whales. Like big country, they have been surrounding Korea, and they have been looking to dominate Korea, to exploit Korea, to, I think, not allow Korea's indigenous and its own identity to be expressed freely. So this has been a big historical challenge for Korea. However, my point in next slide, please. That's true, but I think, next slide. Yeah, I think one myth I wanted to can say, yes, that's true, that because of other countries are in East Asia, they are very big. That's why Korea appears to be a small country. But in reality, they are not small country. If you compare Korean size with European country, for example, take, for example, the biggest country in Europe, population-wise, is Germany. And Germany has population of 83 million. If you combine South Korea and North Korea, I think Korean population also reaches up to maybe 75 million. Similarly, United Kingdom, France, Italy, the biggest country I have mentioned, probably if you take all of them together, I'm not taking USSR and Russia right now, and also Turkey. So Russia, Turkey apart, I think United Korea would be the second biggest population if Korea is basically put into Europe somewhere. So my point is that this idea that Korea is a small country, I think this is not correct. But yes, Korea is a relatively small country. The second part, that it is located at the wrong place in the global map. So that I would agree. And on that basis, basically, I would talk about, I make my today's presentation. Next slide, please. So that's why Korea had, especially if we don't go too much into ancient and medieval history, and we concentrate ourselves to pre-modern and modern period, then you realize that Chosun dynasty, many of you have heard about dynasty, Chosun dynasty, what you call, and that dynasty started in 1392, and it went up to 1910 when Korea was colonized by Japan. And in that long period, you can see that Korea adopted two important policies. One is basically this policy of hermit kingdom. Korea kept itself away from outside players. I can give you one interesting example, that there was a story that some Dutch sailors, they were going to Japan, and somehow their ship got accident. They somehow survived, few of them, they survived. They went to Jeju Island. Then they were sent to Seoul, capital area. And they were not allowed. They were treated well in Korea. They were given land also to do some economic activities, but they were not allowed to go to Japan or say their own Dutch, can say Holland. And they stayed there for many years. Many of them, they died in Korea, but few of them, actually 6 or 7 of them, finally, after 12 years, they went to Japan, and finally from Japan, they went back to Holland. And one of them, Mr. Hamel, he wrote a book. And basically, the story is very interesting, but I think the point is that Korea was not interested that outside world knows that there's a country called Korea over there. So this was the policy which they had. The second policy, which was also equally important, was Sade Chui. So Sade Changchek is basically a policy in which there is acceptance for hierarchy in interstate relations. If any country, any political entity is basically bigger than you, mightier than you, then I think it's no problem to accept role of second fiddle in the interstate relations. So Korea actually accepted Chinese superiority, and they had a very cordial relationship with China throughout the period. So I think this was also another important strategy of Korea. So I think whenever because of, as I told you, that not because of size, but relative size, and because of position. If you look at East Asia regional equations, historically, if Korea is not aligned with one country, if Korea doesn't go with one country, then I think a power vacuum becomes very obvious in East Asia. And all the big countries, they start contesting to fill up that power vacuum, that gap. And in the process, basically, lots of instability happens in the region. So I will talk to first period. Suppose next slide, please. You can see that first period, I will say you can take any period, like say any specific time, but I'm talking about 19th century first half. You can take Opium War or any specific or maybe I think say Kanwa Treaty or whatever. So I think in the last 50 years of 19th century, you can see that in East Asia, the influence and dominance of China has been getting less and less. And in the process, the new powers like Japan has been rising. And Japan started asserting its dominance not only in Korea, but also in Manchuria and other surrounding regions. This was first episode of regional stability in my scheme of presentation. And I feel that there was a contest started happening. Even Russia also started taking more interest in Korea. Actually, there was a time when Russia, they demanded that Korea should be divided into two. 30th parallel, which we know now, which is dividing line between South and North Korea. At one point of time, the Japanese and Russians also, they were talking out not 38th parallel, probably 37th parallel, they were saying that through that we can have two different zones in Korea. Not only that, Western country also started taking interest. I told you that America can say Britishers, they came to America, they came to China through Opium War. And also Americans, they started taking interest in Japan. You know about gunboat diplomacy and opening of like Perry visiting Japan and basically making, let's say, forcing Japan to open itself. Korea was also basically forced to open. So this was the first big changes happening in regional politics, and that created lots of difficulty, lots of confusion in Korea. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, so now you can see that in this episode of regional instability, Korea was facing big challenges. Even if you look at the intellectual history of that period in Korea, you realize that they were talking about what is their identity, whether they belong to Chinese part of their Chinese civilization, or they have their own distinct civilization, or they need to learn from Western civilization. So lots of, even race, whether they belong to what kind of place they have in so-called yellow race. Not only that, even nationalism issue was also debated quite vehemently, quite you can say strongly in that period of time in Korea. You can see, for example, the way from Thevangun, 1863, he got the power. Actually, his son, King Kojong, was still very small. So his father, he was his father of King Kojong. So he ruled Korea for some time, around 10 years. And I think in that period, he had to, you can say, ponder over all these things. Many people were saying in Korea that Korea should modernize itself, whereas Thevangun was of the opinion that we should go back to our civilizational root. We should be more, you can say, more connected to China. So then I think you can see there were other people also. Like I have taken a quote from Yun Chi-ho. He was a leader of Enlightenment Party, and in that he was basically saying that why should we not learn from Japan? Because after Meiji reform, Japan started growing very fast, the way they reorganize their society, their bureaucracy, their police, their military, even their economic production process, that was quite learning from Japan, quite right learning from Korean scholars, some scholars, like Yun Chi Ho. You can read that if I have to choose my home at my pleasure, Japan would be the country. I don't want to live in China with its abominable smells, or the Americans where racial prejudice and discrimination hold their horrid sway, or in Korea as long as its infirm governments last. Oh, blessed Japan, the paradise of this. So you can see how he had been so much in awe with Japanese modernization process and Meiji reform. And many of you must be knowing that first political party in South Korea, the name was Il-chin-wei. Il-chin-wei is basically roughly it could be translated that Il means Ilbon, Chin means China, and Wei means party, in the sense a group which is basically very favorable to Japan. Song Byung-jin, actually, he was one of the very important figure in the Il-chin-wei. And these people, they were very much interested in learning from Japan. So you can see, Thevan Gun is saying that let's go towards China. Il-chin-wei and Yun Chi Ho kind of people, they are saying that we should learn from Japan, we should follow Japan. And there's another, you can say, strand of intellectual churning happening. Many of you have heard Sin Jae-ho. Sin Jae-ho was a very famous historian who wrote what is called people's history in Korea. Minjok. The word Minjok actually he used very prominently, and he also said that look, till now scholars have written history of dynasties in Korea. Let's write history of people of Korea. So I think he was saying that let's not too much get influenced by China, Japan, or Western influences. Let's have a more, you can say, autonomous, independent, indigenous, you can say, ideas of our identity, and accordingly we should move forward. You must have heard about Independence Gate of Korea. Independence Gate of Korea, it's a very interesting that this gate is not declaration of independence of Korea from Japan, but basically this gate, Dongrimun, what you call in Korean, this is basically symbol of Korea's independence from China. Actually, if you read Kangwa Treaty, the first article of Kangwa Treaty talks about this, that Korea is an independent country, because Japan wanted to make that clear so that they can have more access to Japan, and they could have more access in Korea. And I think you can see also how Russians were also playing important role. There was a period, almost 1 year, when King Kojong, he had to stay in Russian embassy. And I told you about Kangwa Treaty. Kangwa Treaty happened in 1876. And that basically led to Japan reaching out to Korea and starting business in Korea and other activities. Korea was forced by other Western countries, like 1882, they had similar treaty with United States. And in next 4-5 years, they had similar treaty with not only France, Italy, UK, means many Western countries, they got into Korean market and they started their economic activity. Ultimately, what happened? What were so many churning happening, so many confusion, chaos, so many ideas competing with one another in Korea. And that basically created a very problematic situation. And it resulted finally into two big wars in the region. One is basically China-Japan war, 1894-95. And next, Russia-Japan, 1904-1905. And ultimately, colonization of Korea. So my point is that whenever there have been regional instability, normally they emanates from a power vacuum. And it leads to confusion among Korean people, and not only Korean people, but regional countries. And finally, what happened, that it is very devastating for Korean people, not only Korean people, but for basically other countries also. It's not that only Korean people died. In Manchuria also, lots of people, they suffered. In in other, you can say, incident also, ultimately, instability had its own consequences. So that's my first. Next slide. Yeah. Now, the second episode of regional instability happens because, again, as I told you, that 1910, Korea got formally colonized. From 1910 to 1945, Korea was basically colony of Japan. So in a way, I think it was a very painful period for Korea. But overall, I think you can see that there was some kind of clarity in regional politics. And another episode, the second episode, what I call, this episode of instability happens when there is a you can say there is a process of end of Second World War. Actually, many of you must be aware that Korea, like Second World War, ended in 1945, but basically by 1943, Allied powers, they were very sure that they are going to win the war. And when they knew that this is going to happen, then they started thinking about post-war international order. And in that process, they thought about whether it's going to be a bipolar contest between USSR and US, or what kind of things are going to happen. What will happen to China? So those questions were there. Next slide. So in this period also, as I told you, that suppose 1943 to 1945, there were several conferences: Cairo Conference, Tehran Conference, Yalta Conference, 1940, Cairo in 43, and Yalta in 45, Potsdam 45, and post, I think, San Francisco. All these conferences, they were talking about Korea. And why they were talking about Korea? Because probably they thought that Korea is going to be now independent, but an independent Korea, but weak Korea, which is a small country, relatively small country, is going to be again, you can say, a place for which big players they are going to contest. So what should be the future of Korea? That was they were debating in these conferences. And what they decided? They decided two options actually they had. One was trusteeship formula, that Korea would be put into trusteeship of 4-5 countries, and in due course, later on they clarified that in next 4-5 years or 10 years, they are going to make Korea independence. So that was one formula for Korea's future. The second formula was that let's have two influence zones in Korea. One is northern side, guided by Soviet Union, and in southern side guided by United States. Actually, because of that, when Korea got independence, like say 15th August 1945, I think we need to remember that Korean people, they created lots of people's committee across the Korea. And within 3 weeks, in the first week of September, they declared establishment of Korea's People's Republic. In a way, they said that, look, we have created, and not only that, president, prime minister, home minister, foreign minister, all these positions were also declared. For example, president position was given to Syngman Rhee. Kim Koo was probably home minister. So I think and it's very interesting that many people say that these people's committee, they were left oriented or left leaning committee. But we need to know that Syngman Rhee was never a leftist. For example, Kim Koo was also not a leftist. He was basically at that point of time head of Korea's provisional government, which was working from Chungin. Actually, 1919, Korean provisional government was established in China. But later on, they changed the city. They were still in China. So I think all these things were happening, but outside players, they were deciding a very different fate for Korea. Korean leaders, including Kim Kyu-sik and Kim Koo and other, you can say, important leaders, they tried to avoid Young Han and other people. They tried to divide, you can say, avoid division. But Americans, they brought Syngman Rhee for America, and he was declared to be, rather, he was given more space in politics, and gradually, though he was very old, 72 years old, he became the leader in Southern Korea. And in Northern Korea also, again, the USSR, they brought a very young person. Actually, when it's very interesting to know that when Syngman Rhee came to Korea in 1945, he was 72-year-old, too old for politics, maybe. And when Kim Il-sung was brought to northern part of Korea, he was just 33-year-old, so very young. Actually, many Koreans in northern side, they did not accept that this Kim Il-sung is the real Kim Il-sung, because they had very much, you can say, memory of. So I think you can see that I think in this second episode also, Korea got independence, but Korea got division. Then soon, 1948, Republic of Korea and Democratic People's Republic of Korea, South Korea and North Korea, they were born. But within 3 years, they had to fight what is called Korean War. Korean War, which again, it went up to 3 years. And 1953, some truce agreement, some armistice agreement was signed. And then on also, existential crisis, the contest between North and South Korea had been ongoing. So my point is that in the second phase of instability, second episode in East Asian politics, you can see that again, I think Korea and region becomes very, you can say, troubled. Now, next slide. Now, I told you that it has become, Korea became, you can say, a battleground. This had huge human and material. For Korean War itself, I think if people are here from all East Asia, I think this was a very, very disastrous war. I think at least there are 3 to 4 million people who died. South Korea and North Korea, both sides, almost all the infrastructures were demolished. Roads, bridges, factories, railways, everything was demolished, and people had huge suffering in this period. Anyway, next slide. My point is that now we are coming to third episode. It seems to me that another big change is quite apparent in global politics when there are two different things happening together. One is that rise of assertive China, and another is basically American attempt through different mechanism. Americans, they initially tried to compete with China alone in this region, but then they decided to have what is called pivot to Asia policy. Then they had this Indo-Pacific strategy. So many countries they are having, like Japan. So Indo-Pacific strategy, it includes not only America and American allies, but also American-friendly country like India also. So I think we'll talk about that. So this is another probably episode of regional instability, and how in this era Korea is getting affected and Korea affects the regional politics that we have to see. Next slide, please. About rise of assertive China, I'll like say I have many slides, but I will be going slightly faster. So you can see some titles of the book which have been published in recent years. And you can see every book is saying that China is going to be a big threat. They are going to challenge the existing rules in the world. They are going to create some kind of, they are going to bully Asia. So you can see all these titles, and probably you can understand the sentiment which is there. Next slide, please. Fundamentally, there are two things which people are saying. They're saying that one, in economic domain, China is going to dominate. Actually, economic domain, China has already been. Actually, that's why there are some scholars like Eikenberry and others, they say that the world is going through, we are seeing what is called dual hierarchy. In economic domain, China is the most dominant country, but in security and strategic domain, America is the most important country. Why they say that economic domain they are important? Because if you look at, like, already purchasing power parity wise, Chinese economy is right now bigger economy than America. We know that China is #1 trading partner of 140 country around in the world, out of 193 countries which are member of United Nations. You can see that how huge Chinese foreign reserves are. So I think even though China has not been doing quite well economically for some years, but overall, I think they are very, very important player in the economic domain. And probably for the same reason, in 2013, Xi Jinping, when he came to power, he started what is called Belt and Road Initiative. In the beginning, it was called One Belt, One Road, Il De Il Road. But when they realized that probably this could create some apprehension in the minds of Asian country, so they changed it to Belt Road Initiative. And to fund Belt Road Initiative, they created what is called AIIB, Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. Now, in security and strategic domain also, you can see that next slide, please. You can Belt and Road Initiative, you can see, I think we can discuss this required. Next slide, AIIB. I think Korea is also part of foundational member of AIIB. India is #2 contributor to this AIIB. We'll talk. You can say in security, next slide. In 2003, China also declared that we are going to have, I think, our own, what is called ADIG, Air Defense Identification Zone. And this Chinese unilateral action of deciding ADIG is basically problematic because China and South Korea, they already had their so-called ADIG, and there are lots of overlapping. For example, Yaodo, one small island of Korea, South Korea, that is also part of Chinese Air Defense Identification Zone. Japan's Senkaku Island, on which actually there is a debate, Senkaku or Diao Chinese name. So that also come into. So I think Xi Jinping has been doing all this. Next slide, please. You can see South China also. Now the old, you can say, 9-dash line and other, you can say, idea, which have been there for many years, more than 40, 50 years, China has been saying. But in last almost 12 years of Xi Jinping, you can see that China is becoming more and more assertive about 9-dash line. Actually, they have also declared that South China Sea and East China Sea, they are of China's core interest. There's an idea of core interest in Chinese foreign policy. And the idea is that if anything is core of Chinese foreign policy, it means for that China would go to war. So I think you can see, they have been, next slide, please. They have been building artificial islands also in South China Sea. Next slide, please. They are, you can say, they are probably trying to reach to Indian Ocean also and trying to have good relations with Myanmar, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Pakistan, and in a way encircle and have huge presence in. So this is one thing happening at this point of time, and region is provided. Next slide. So next slide, please. So the second important, like in the third episode of regional instability, you can see that China is becoming assertive. China is demanding more space in economic domain and security domain of the regional politics. And you can see that to contest this, because lots of people, they have been saying that American influence has been going down in last some decades. I again brought some titles of the book in which it has been mentioned that America is not the preeminent power. Next slide, please. You can see that the economic capacity share of America has been also going down. And according to one estimate, I think by 2030, I think China will be #1, and I think American economy will be #2. Next. So next slide, please. So as I told you that China, like America has been trying to deal with the situation, and they had initially tried to do it by themselves and with their allies. Then they had pivot to Asia. Now they are having Indo-Pacific strategy. Actually, I will not say that only Americans are having Indo-Pacific strategy and all other countries they are implementing. But in a way, the two big things are happening: rise of assertive China, as well as other countries they are making their own Indo-Pacific strategy. My point is that Indo-Pacific strategy is not a singular development. There are Indo-Pacific strategies, plural. Japan has a strategy for Indo-Pacific. South Korea has an Indo-Pacific strategy. America has an Indo-Pacific strategy. Even ASEAN country, they call themselves, they call this outlook. They did not use the word strategy, but they use outlook for Indo-Pacific. So all the countries there, and in a way, all these efforts are probably geared to counterbalance, or rather to deal with, to use a soft word, to deal with China. That is my understanding. Next slide, please. And I think you can, next slide. So these are the two big things that are happening in the, can say, Asia, broader Asia Pacific. But if we come to, you can say, more specific East Asia, I think two other factors have been there in this third episode of instability, and that is basically Japan's quest to become a normal state. Next slide, please. You can see that for a very, very long time, Japan has been, you can say, they are very, they are satisfied with their peace constitution. The post-war constitution of Japan had Article 9, which forbade actually Japan to have its own military, though they had self-defense forces, and self-defense forces were also quite powerful, quite strong. But now, especially Shinzo Abe had been, he tried to change Japanese posture also. He said that Japan should become more, you can say, present in the world. And actually, there was a word which had been used in understanding Japanese strategy and foreign policy. It's called normal state. This idea of normal state has been there for almost 3 decades. Even during Koizumi period, it was quite debated, quite, you can say, used. And normal state means they say that Japan is a very important economic player, but they are not very important strategic and security player. So there is a mismatch. There's an abnormality in Japan's position. So let's make Japan a normal state means let's make Japanese security and military capacity also at par with its economic capacity. So there must be some consistency in their economic and military might. So, and they want to do more, you can say, they take charge in East Asia and even Indo-Pacific. So this is also happening, and this is also, in a way, not going quite well with sentiments in South Korea and even in China. So I think this is one important, another, you can say, specific, East Asia specific development which must be. Next slide, please. Next slide. And the second important thing, region specific, is North Korean nuclear and missile program. We can keep talking about that, but I think the fundamental issue is that, look, 2006 North Korea had first nuclear test, 2009 another test, 2012 another test, 2016 2 tests, 2017 1 test. Overall 6 tests they have done. And with the course of time, their nuclear weapons, they have become much more sophisticated, much more, you can say, portable from one place to another place, much more, you can say, the size-wise smaller, much more powerful in terms of, you can say, detonation capacity. And also, those, you can say, warheads, they could be moved from one place to another easily. Similarly, if you look at North Korea's missiles development, then also you will realize that they have covered a huge distance from Nodong missiles up to now, I think, when they are having, we can say, what is that, like the 17 version. Actually, now they are having ICBMs. So I think this is also a very important variable in deciding stability and instability in the region. Next slide, please. So my point is that at the third episode also, South Korea is, or rather Korea is placed you can say, in a very difficult situation. For example, take for example South Korea. South Korea is again looking very confused. If you look at the Korean politics, South Korean politics right now, there are conservative and progressive political forces who are contesting with each other. You can see that the president Yoon Suk-yeol, who was impeached by National Assembly of Korea, he is still supported by more than 30% people. You can see that both rallies in support of Yoon Suk-yeol and rallies in opposition to Yoon Suk-yeol, all of them, they are happening together, and huge number of peoples are coming in both the sides, both the rallies. It's basically, it showed that basically that like and if you look at the heart of the issue, why people are having two opinions. Actually, the conservative people who support Yoon Suk-yeol, they know that by declaring martial law, I think Yoon Suk-yeol made a mistake. But they feel that progressive forces in Korea, they are quite close to China and North Korea. I'm not saying that this is true. Factually, it may be incorrect, but their idea is that few of our own people. So in Korea, there's a larger understanding that 20, 30, 40% of progressive forces, they are in close contact with China, North Korea, or say so-called socialist communist forces. And similarly, the other side feel that suppose conservative forces, these people, they are totally aligned with United States and Japan. They are not careful about Korea's national interest. They are looking to become friendly to America and Japan in cost of our own national interest being survived. You can say sacrifice. I'm not saying that one party is right or wrong. What I'm trying to emphasize that again, similar kind of confusion. Remember the first episode when they were saying that Japan is better, China is better, Western influences are better, or we should have our own indigenous national identity. I think similar kind of confusions, indecisiveness, and I think instability could be seen in South Korea right now. And when it comes to foreign policy choices, that is reflected. You can see how contrast to foreign policy has been of two presidents, Moon Jae-in and Yoon Suk-yeol. Moon Jae-in, who was power from 2017 to 2025, 24, no, 22, 2017 to 2022, and Yoon Suk-yeol, who had been power from 2022 till now, you may say, because still Han Duck-soo is acting president, who he had been appointed prime minister by Yoon Suk-yeol. So I'm saying that still he's continuing support in a different manner. So they are not able to decide whether they should go along with China, whether they should go along with United States. And the reasons are there, actually. You can see how economic dependence of South Korea has been there with China. How, at the same time, security alliance with United States is also very strong. You can't. Similarly, in case of Japan also, there is a problem for how South Korea should deal with Japan. Whether more and more aggressive Japan, more and more a Japan which is ready to take responsibility in Indo-Pacific region, that should be allowed, supported by South Korea, or whether they should try to, create some kind of hedging, some kind of hurdle from Japan to become again assertive and aggressive in the regional politics. With North Korea also, you can see how Korean society is divided. Whether we should engage North Korea, we should have a policy like sunshine policy with North Korea, or whether we should have a containment policy. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide, and basically I would end my presentation by this slide. So my point is that in this third episode of regional instability, how it's going to impact South Korea, and the simple answer is that yes, it's going to negatively impact South Korea. But at the same time, I would also emphasize few other factors which must be kept in our mind. Unlike previous two occasions, South Korea now is not a poor country. It's an economic powerhouse. South Korea is 11th or 13th, depending on whether you are taking purchasing power parity or nominal criteria. So they are 11th, 12th, 13th, you can say, biggest economy in the world. If you look at the technological capacity of South Korea, it's really, really huge. Korean cultural products have also become very popular. I think everywhere, almost all the Indian young generation people, or say young generation people across the globe, they know who is BTS, who is Blackpink. So I think Korean soft power is also very strong and is quite thriving in different parts of the world. Now, I'm also saying that if you look at the population and area-wise, South Korea, let's say Korea appears to be small, but I think my position is that it's stronger because of the nature of manpower they have. Earlier, suppose 50 million population who are well educated, who are provided good health care, and they are trained in modern technology. I think they are more important than having 100 million population, but people are illiterate, people are not healthy, people are not trained. So my point is that this time Korea is much more trained, much more in an advantageous position. Also, I'm also quite, you can say, optimistic that now the 21st century world is not 19th century world, or now, say, mid of 20th century, the second episode. I think this is a period when I think countries are much more interdependent, connected. And I think that also means that an all-out fight and conflict is probably not quite likely. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but less likely. So in that sense, I think Korea is going to have different. But overall, my point is that Korea needs to clarify its issue of identity, issue of its role. You know, my last point probably is not in the slide, that when we look at our historical reflection about regional stability, I think normally Korea had been at the receiving end. They got impacted by what was happening outside, and they got impacted quite negatively. But South Korea now, especially South Korea, they have more capacity now. They can bring out more positive developmental agenda, and I think they can be, you can say, they can contributor to the global regional stability, and I think it could be a very different thing. So I will end my presentation by saying that, look, one episode, two episode, Korea suffered, region suffered. Third episode, let's be prepared, aware, so that all of us, we don't need to suffer that much. Thank you very much. Next slide. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sandip, Kumar, Mishra, for your very lucid exposition of Korean politics from the late 19th century to today, actually. So you divided the recent history into 3 episodes, what you call episodes of instability. So as you summarized at the end of your presentation, you see very, very negative impact on Korea of the first and second episodes of Korean recent history, but the third episode is slightly different from the first 2 episodes, and you provided a little bit positive viewpoint on the stability a possibility of stability on the Korean Peninsula and its surrounding region in Northeast Asia as well. Okay, so now let me open the floor to the audience. So please feel free to raise questions or to make your own comment on Dr. Mishra's presentation. Who will be the first?
Yes, if I may.
Okay,
So,
okay, please.
all right. Thank you. And thank you, Sandip. It's always, very nice to see you and to listen to your presentation. I've been away from this forum for quite some time, but I'm back. Anyway, let me see. Wait. Okay. Well, I'm just curious. I mean, of course, the presentation is very interesting, but I'm curious as to what is the Korea's response, to the present leadership in the U.S. And we know that Trump has his own idea about how to go about doing international relations, and recently he has just also put a 25% tariff on automobiles and auto parts, coming to the U.S. and Korea. Automobile industries, I'm sure, must be affected because, if I'm not mistaken, about 50% of the automobiles from Korea, is sold in the U.S. and also other things like parts and all those things. So I'm sure it's going to have an effect on Korea's economy, and I'm just curious as to how Korea will respond, to this tariff and other things made by the current administration in the U.S., especially since Korea is also very closely tied to the U.S. in terms of security, on the Korean Peninsula and in the Northeast region. So I'm sure that they would have to, tread very carefully on how they deal, with this present situation, and especially with the uncertainties, that is Trump. I think all of us are, feeling the effects of it. So I'm just curious, how is this going to change, or is it going to change at all the outlook of Korea's policy and the outlook in the Northeast Asian region? Thank you again.
Okay, yeah, that's very important question you raised now. Dr. Mishra, do you have any response?
Yeah, I think it's a very important and so nice to see you, Jam. Actually, I think it's always, you can say, I learned a lot by your questions. I think this question is also quite important. And I think we don't have answer to this question. In the sense, how Trump is going to behave, we don't have answer. Actually, I was just looking at a statement, I think 1 month back, actually, when he was starting, Trump made a statement saying that South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher than United States. Although America has helped the Asian ally materially, they are not helping America. So in a way, 4 times he said the tariffs are high. South Korean authorities next day they clarified that this is untrue. So my point is that he is assuming many things, and on that basis, he is basically talking about all those incorrect facts. How South Korea or other allies, they are going to take it, I'm not sure. Suppose he said that I had just talked to Japanese Prime Minister, and Japanese Prime Minister has on tariff issue. Japanese Prime Minister, he gave a statement in Parliament saying that no, I did not get any phone call from Trump on this issue. So this is basically incorrect representation. That's one problem. The second problem is that we know that last time also, and this time is going to be more so, Trump is going to be transactional. For him, the important part is that America is having trade deficit with Taiwan, with Japan, with South Korea. I can give you a figure like with Taiwan, America is having trade deficit of 74 billion. With South Korea, they are having trade deficit of 66 billion. With Japan, they are having, according to Trump, trade deficit of 100 billion. So overall, I think three important players, three important friends of United States in the region, they are having huge trade deficit. With China also, they are having almost 295 billion US dollar trade deficit. So from Trump's economic lens, if America is losing 300 billion because of trade deficit with China, America is also losing 300 billion because of these, like in doing trade with these three countries, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. So in my opinion, in Trump's period, the economic policy, rather America's policy, foreign policy toward these countries, they are going to be largely driven by economic interests, geopolitical interests, long-term vision, looking at the, you can say, future trends in regional politics. I think they are going to have some impact here and there, but largely Trump understands only the, you can say, the language of, I think, economic benefits. So I think this is going to be, suppose they are going to, American, all possible in next few months, they are going to discuss about South Korea should contribute more money for the forces, for the troops, which are the American troops, which are there in South Korea. Similarly, they will ask more money from Japan also. I don't know. So my point is that next 3.5 years, 4 years, whatever the period is there, I think it's going to be difficult more for the allies and friends of United States than the rivals. Rivals anyway, they are preparing to contest United States. So they are already prepared. But the allies, which were much more complicated, in a very complicated manner, they were, you can say, aligned and rather connected with United States, they are going to suffer a lot. And they will always be on their toes because they don't know what next coming from Trump. So it's going to be a period of difficulty, uncertainty, unpredictability, and the final answer, nobody knows. So that's my response. And this is going to create a very difficult situation in regional politics because American friends are uneasy, whereas enemies or other foes are anyway, they have to remain uneasy. So it's going to be a very, you can say, and in case this leads to Japan and South Korea deciding that we also need to become nuclear power, we need to take up security in our own hands, I think it's going to be much more, you can say, unstable situation in the regional politics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very difficult situation, but your, I think, response is quite reasonable from my point of view as a Korean. Okay. Okay. Any further reaction from Professor Askandar?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I agree that things looks a bit uncertain, but let's also think about long term. And let's not do things drastically that might, you win some in the short term, but in the long term it will, destroy relationships. And my feeling is that we have to respond, but not to follow the aggressive ways that the Trump administration is doing. Thank you for your response.
Okay.
I think one line I will add what Professor like Kamru Skand told. That's very important what he said, that we should realize that this may not be American policy. This is Trump's policy, and Trump policy cannot sustain more than 4 years. So if you can survive those 4 years, probably again America and South Korea, America and Japan, their friendship, their alliance, their you can say mutual beneficial relations will further continue. So we should not overreact. That's very true in short term.
Very
Thank you.
interesting point. It's more towards President Trump, a personal leadership rather than America as a whole. Okay, very interesting point. Okay, any other participants who have questions or comments?
Professor
I?
Mikio Osi. Professor Osi.
Can I say something?
Professor Wish. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you, Sandip, for your very excellent presentation. Thought-provoking and such a wide scope. Not only about Korean Peninsula, but maybe East Asian region and Asia Pacific and Indo-Pacific. So I'm so fascinated with your presentation. Just a minute, yeah. Okay, so because you discuss so many things, I'm a bit kind of how to say overwhelmed and where to start. But maybe I want to ask you maybe question and comment, maybe 3 points. 3 points. First one is a question. Second one is maybe second and third are comment. Okay, anyway, the first one is the question. So I think quite interesting that Korea has played a very pivotal role for the stability and the instability in East Asia. So this perspective very interesting actually. When the Korea is maybe not united and maybe confusion, then there's a power vacuum, and then surrounding countries wants to feel the power vacuum, right? Yeah. So the one task for Korea is how to cope with this permanent situation. The Korea can become the power vacuum, or maybe Korea can become the hub, regional hub, economic hub, and the political cooperation, cultural exchange. Yeah? So the Korea has a huge potential. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think former President Moon came up with this idea, right? And kind of Korea Peninsula process. Yeah? Korea will play the very important role as a mediator, and maybe putting together the tectonic plate. And the East Asia had a big tectonic plates actually. Then because of tectonic plates and because of this, there's often the earthquake and what is happening. And the Korea and also Japanese archipelago and sit on the tectonic plate. And then how the Korea can play the role of the maybe stabilizer as maybe the hub rather than a vacuum or the black hole. So, but anyway, and my one question is that I'm just maybe thinking about the period of, maybe you know about the Japan's Tokugawa era, Edo period. So this period, Japan kind of closed itself basically, but still there's some exchange with Korean Peninsula and China, and I think and often the Japan at that time accepted the delegation from Korea. This is very, very famous one. Yeah? And then the ones entering from the Kyushu part, then those delegations just go through the Japanese peninsula and go through Osaka, Kyoto, then I think eventually Edo, I think, the current Tokyo. Yeah? So this is a kind of the exchange, but not so much. So I feel this Tokugawa period era, I think the East Asia rather stable, rather stable. And unlike the, and Hideyoshi, who sent the soldiers to Korean Peninsula, and Tokugawa Ieyasu, and learned the lesson about the mistake of Japan. Then I think this period, I think that the peaceful. So maybe you may explain a little bit more about this period maybe I know something from the Japanese perspective. How about the Korean? You mentioned the Hermit Kingdom and other things, yeah? And also the maybe early part of the Tokugawa era is the Ming Dynasty was there. Then after the Qing Dynasty, right? And then maybe also, a lot of things depend on the policy of these two Chinese dynasties. But anyway, because I'm kind of feeling maybe, is it possible to return to the East Asian situation to that era? Because of course we cannot recreate the same things, but that one gives a certain maybe certain how do you say prototype for the regional stability. Second one is that, as you mentioned, early 20th century when the Korea and Korea was under pressure, then eventually annexed to Japan, right? That one is the era of imperialism. Now, I don't think we are in the same situation, as you mentioned, right? So, for example, maybe regional power and China and Russia. Maybe many of you here may not agree with what I say, but I feel China and Russia doesn't have the imperial instinct, instinct for imperial expansion. I don't think so. This is a very controversial position, but I feel. And Japan, not so clear, right? And as you say, Abe has certain ambition, maybe under the name of the normal state. But Abe's Japan may try to play the major role, right? And the politics. And I personally didn't subscribe to Abe's idea. But anyway, I think now, and also Trump, President Trump, I think his position, I think that if Trump maybe Trump's policy continue for quite some time into the future, then I feel the U.S. will withdraw military presence from Northeast Asia. And I think this is the general trend under the Trump administration. And Trump wants to focus on America. And not only America, but Canada, Mexico, and North America, right? And he wants to create one domain, right? Big domain. And then otherwise, Trump is not so much interested, right? And in other regions. Then the East Asia, I think the U.S. influence, especially military influence, will be weak. Then what happens? As you mentioned, maybe the regional countries feel uncomfortable with each other. Then maybe Japan also want to feel have the nuclear arm, and also Korea also something. But for me and this. I think that President Trump, this is called the Trump revolution, and open up the big opportunity for people like me. And my future is not East Asia, in which each country is armed with nuclear weapons, and that is so sad as a human being, right? And but I feel now, I think that now how to say, international system, interstate system has become very mature. So I think most of the differences among the states can be settled diplomatic way, rather than unlike in the past, rather than during the period compared with the period of imperialism. Now we are not imperialism. So I think that maybe there's no longer pressure exerted and among themselves in East Asia. So I feel there's a big opportunity. So anyway, and the third one very short because my commentary is long. And I feel, because since the start of the so-called Russian invasion into Ukraine, but I would not say, I would say this is a special military operation. And then Japan made a huge mistake, actually, to become hostile and to take the side of the US under Biden administration. And then because of this, the relationship between Japan and Russia so bad. And now Russia has become very, very strong economically, militarily, and politically. So this is a huge mistake. So and then also Korea under the President Yoon, right? Yoon also take the side of the U.S. and unlike the President Moon period. So for a short term, I feel very much concerned about maybe the short-term future of two countries, Japan and South Korea. And under the President Yoon's administration, and Japan and South Korea, and become very close with each other, right? And maybe there are three countries: U.S., South Korea, Japan. But all these things kind of maybe I think almost gone under President Trump. And you say, and after 4 years, after 3 years time, and the current policy will disappear, right? But I have some maybe different opinion, but I'm not going to detail. And but anyway, so I think for the short-term period, Japan and Korea, I think made some serious problem. And also during the past few years, now the Korea is becoming the main, weapons exporting country, right? And the Korean tank is in high demand, and the military, and I feel rather uneasy, right? And then the Korea exporting a lot of the weapons to Poland, and Poland, Korea has a very good now the military, almost like a military agreement, right? So I'm not sure about this policy, and now and this policy just reflects the previous Biden administration, but under Trump, and maybe I think quite difficult. I'm sorry, I'm not so very much clear, but maybe any response from you are welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Very detailed discussion on the presentation of Dr. Mishra. Okay, three main points you raised. Then, okay, let us hear Dr. Mishra's response.
I think it's always interesting to learn from Professor Mikiosi. Actually, I will start with the last question, which you last comment you had. I think I remember still we had our History NGO Forum, can say 2017 or something. I think we had in Korea University, and in a cafe. That time Trump was having his first presidency, and you were basically saying that he's not disturbing anything substantial and he could be positive. I had a very different opinion, and we had a very strong, I think almost 30-40 minutes we debated about that. And I think it was inconclusive. You kept your own opinion, I kept my own opinion, but it was quite. So I think the last question which you are saying that my basic problem is that when we say that international system has become more mature, I am also optimistic, and I would like to be optimistic as you. But don't you feel that international system, with all its maturity, what's happening in Palestine, we know. International system and mechanism, they don't have anything to stop it. Like children, women, they are being suffering, they are being killed. And I think system has not been able to. I don't know what United Nations had done to resolve this thing, or say what big players they have done. Similarly, as you mentioned in Ukraine, whatever be the politics and strategy of it, but I think there doesn't appear to be any mechanism which can be used, and the process could be reversed, or maybe it could be stopped. So my disappointment is that even if we have become relatively mature, but I think we are still far away from any substantial, and you can say that kind of mechanism. And because we are not having all those mechanisms, any leadership which is irresponsible and which is basically running, say, United States, the big powerful country like United States, China, Russia, you can say Japan, Germany. So any irresponsible leadership Israel are even also, I think they can damage lots of international cooperation and other, you can say, mechanism. That's one. Secondly, they will also lead to encouragement of these kind of tendencies in other countries also. And that's why I'm worrying that maybe Japan would also think about having its own nuclear weapon. South Korea will also feel that, look, in the crisis situation, we may not get support from anyone. So I'm worried about that. So that's last point, actually, I would like to say. The second point which you made about Tokugawa, I fully appreciate your point, and I will read more about that period, because that could also be beneficial for my paper, and if I complete it, that I think that will give more meat to my arguments. So I will definitely learn from that. The first point also, I fully agree that I think South Korea, and that's why if you read the 2022 Indo-Pacific Strategy document of South Korea, which was released in December 2022, the word they have used, global pivotal state. Global pivotal state means, actually you mentioned about Moon Jae-in trying to make Korea as mediator, as a bridge between big players. I'm saying that Yoon Suk Yeol also had this idea of global pivotal state. Not only that, there have been multiple, even when previous term, Oh Se-hun, right now he's mayor of Seoul City. Earlier also he had been mayor of Seoul City. In that term also he talked about making South Korea hub of fashion, hub of economic activity. So I think these potentials are there, and leadership in South Korea have mentioned about that. I'm basically looking for more systematic effort by South Korean leadership to realize that, and also equally important would be how regional countries they respond, because South Korea would like to become regional hub, but do do regional countries also feel that South Korea should be given this privilege? I'm not sure about that. They will be having resistance. But at least I can tell you one thing. There's a very interesting concept called Shanghai Circle. Shanghai Circle basically means you be in Shanghai and draw a circle. So any place where you can reach in 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So you will be having Tokyo, you'll be having Seoul, you'll be having Beijing, you'll be having Shanghai, you'll be having Taipei. And these are huge, you can say, centers of economic production and economic activities. So I think that way, I think region could integrate and cooperate more. So I agree with that, that South Korea must work on that line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Very heated debate going on. Interesting. And very good. So any further comment or questions?
If I allow just to add it, the Tokugawa yes, okay, just before
Yes, please.
the question, after the another war, big war between the Japan invaded Korea, 1592. We call it Imjin Weran. I mean, in Korean, it is the name of the year is Imjin. At the time, not only it's expanded like East Asian War. I mean, East Asian War means like Northeast Asia. Later, already, Professor Sandip mentioned the relations between Joseon Dynasty or Korea and China, kinds of like affiliate relation. That's why the Joseon Dynasty, Joseon King, asked for the assistance. I mean the support from China and the Ming Dynasty. They involved in this war, right? And they became weakened because of they're like dispatched their more than 50,000 military. After that, after the Hideyoshi, there was 3 heroes anyway. Hideyoshi, he died, and Tokugawa Ieyasu, he just initiate, the Edo era, right? Edo era, and he suggested that reconciliation. At that time, the Joseon King Sonjo, he thought their arch enemy, okay, like the Japan arch enemy, but he just sent one the representative first, the monk, like Samyang, like monk, the Tessa, and he had kinds of like unofficial, like envoy or someone, and negotiate with the Tokugawa, and he brought like hostages, okay, who hostages more than what 30,000, like hostages. And since then there this kinds of like envoy was developed. We call it Joseon Sushinsu or something like in Japanese word, and 12 times, okay, it's continued, and it's kinds of developed into like a cultural exchange or something, and that is the 200 year of like a period of like a very peaceful time. So there are many scholars who do research on this period, okay? So, okay, it's just my add a little more comment.
Thank you very much for your comments on historical part of Japan-Korea relations. Okay, we have now two persons who want to join the discussion. First, Chalida, you take the floor, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I have one question to ask about the futures and also present the politics right now. We also discuss and we also can see that right now Trump policies also make many change for the politics in world politics. So I would like to ask the idea from our group, this group, that what kind of the political geographic region, for example, the politics in the Asia Pacific and also East Asia Pacific, what kind of the strategic that we among us to sub-region, it should be to cooperate strategic to do something against with Trump policy. How that we can survive under this situation. So maybe not only not only Sandip or anyone that also can be respond on this issue, because this is also important for us to have a strategy to survive, or to move forward among ourselves. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, I share your concern. About the Trump administration's new approaches and policies. Yes. Okay. First, Dr. Mishra again. Do you have any?
Yeah, I think, frankly speaking, it's a very, very pertinent question. And I think it's not a question which should be answered right now. This is a question which we all need to ponder, we need to think. And I think anybody who is having a good answer, the person is going to be very helpful for humanity, because there are contests happening in the global politics and regional politics, and even within the country, in which I think less and less we are becoming generous to others. Less and less we are becoming agreed to this coexistence. Actually, other day I was listening a debate in Korean politics, and there's a very famous writer who was a minister also during Nomuyan time. His name is Yu Min. So Yu Min had a very interesting definition of democracy. He said democracy means creating some kind of mechanism, some method in which you are ready to stay in a country with a person with whom you don't want to stay in one country. So you don't want to stay with the person, but still you have to. So this idea of coexistence, this idea of tolerance, the idea that others could be different, the idea that two positions could be same time true, same time correct. So I think those ideas, those considerations have become very within country, between interstate relations in region or at the global level. So I think all of us, we need to ponder over that. We need to keep belief in ourselves. We need to keep engagement with civil society. We need to be investing more in, you can say, right kind of education. That's probably the only way we can move forward. But unfortunately, right now, the situation looks not very positive. So I think strategic cooperation, again, like when my point of view, that's about, I told you that in Indo-Pacific, or say Asia Pacific, or you can say East Asia, in this region, the two big things are, one is that China rise assertive. They are trying to dominate, they are trying to exploit, they are trying to expand. The second important trend is that other country, they are trying to resist. And in the process, countries like Japan, they are also trying to become more aggressive. My point is that if we allow these two narratives to dominate everything else, they are conflictual. They are going to create conflict in the region. My point is that why can't we have, say, India, or say South Korea, or say many Southeast Asian countries? All of us, we want peace and stability. So let's talk more about climate change. Let's talk more about, I think, education. Let's talk more about health cooperation. Let's talk about, so rather than talking about the agenda item which have been given to us by China, United States, why can't we articulate our own positive developmental agenda so that even China and US ultimately they start talking about those things? Less on military, less on strategy, less on, you can say, confrontation. So all these methods could be applied together. Unfortunately, at the top leadership, when I look at, because I study political science, and in India, in South Korea, and other East Asian countries, I realize that the visionary leadership is missing in most of these countries. So we need more visionary democratic leaders who can bring different agenda items at the fora, and all these conflictual issues, they become secondary. I may be too optimistic, I'm like say, but I don't know. That's the only idea which I have right now. But I'll say that all of us as a community, you can say social worker, we need to keep thinking about it and think about solutions, answers. Thank you.
Okay, any further good idea to attenuate, to reduce child leaders' concern? Any further good idea to attenuate, to reduce child leaders' concern? No? Okay, then shall we have Mikhail Khan, who is having question or comment? Okay.
Yeah, question and comment. Thank you very much for your excellent analysis and presentation, Dr. Sandip. And I have been thinking about the building peaceful East Asia these years. And I'd like to ask you some questions, and maybe first one would be, but before that, I have to make a comment on the history of Korea, because in the first and the second episodes of regional instability, Japan is strongly connected with the Korean history. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Yeah, and it's a colonization, and Japan made the cause of division of Korea because of the colonization. And I feel really sorry, extremely sorry for what happened or what Japan did to the Korean people on the Korean Peninsula. And I don't think I can apologize about that. But as last week I did, I'd like to apologize what we did, what happened during the wartime and the colonization time and after that. I would like I would like to reach to the reconciliation of the two countries, and I'm not really sure how I can or we can do that, but we can at least work together or cooperate in order to build peace, peaceful Asia, peaceful East Asia, and we can maybe reconcile in that way. And I'm thinking about the East Asia and what is necessary to build peaceful East Asia. We have to think about China and North Korea and maybe the USA. And it is necessary to end the Korean War in order to stop the hostility between the two same ethnic region, ethnic group, North Korea and South Korea. It's a one race. So in 2018, Trump and President Moon Jae-in and Trump and Kim Jong-un tried to make that to conclude Korean War. But maybe it was crushed with the pressure from the U.S. weapon company or the military industry complex, I think. And it can be done again. And I think it is possible. And maybe if the Korean War is concluded, there could be the chance to build the group of Asian plus 4. Asian plus 3 is sometimes mentioned. Asian, China, ASEAN plus 4. ASEAN, China, Korea, Japan, and North Korea. And as Moon Jae-in tried several years ago, it took a really big amount of energy. And maybe the people in South Korea could not make a common sense, common way of thinking, in order to make a in order to reunite the race. It was such a big problem. But if the North Korea is left included in the group of ASEAN plus 4, it is okay. No need to reunite hastily. It can be the time can be taken, and it would be possible in some future. And so there would be more peaceful East Asia. And one more thing is that South China Sea, or the China itself, and according to the international maritime law, or the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, the China, the sorry, the Sea of South China Sea, the Sea of South China was divided to the Philippine side and the Vietnam side and the China side. But before that, from the Ming Dynasty through Japanese imperial imperial Japan, the South China Sea was it was how to say that it was during the Ming Dynasty. South China Sea was belonged to Ming Dynasty, and the war period of World War II time period, it belonged to Japan. And after that, because of the Potsdam Declaration or the Cairo Declaration, it was given back to South China. So it is the it's a position of China, isn't it? But the International Tribunal of the Law of the Sea made a judgment of it belongs to Philippines, Vietnam, and China, and that is the very it's a big problem, and China has not agreed to the judgment. It is a big problem, and so we need to talk about it, and we can maybe we can solve the problem by discussion or by diplomacy. I'm sorry, and thank you very much. And I'd like to ask the reaction or the comment from Mr. Sandip or other people. Would you please?
Thank you very much for your contribution, Dr. Mikhail Khan. Thank you very much, as always. Okay, just considering the time limit, Dr. Mishra, could you give a very brief response? And then we are going to return the podium to Chairman Kang to conclude today's session. Okay.
I think all the, you can say, comments of, you can say, Mr. Mikio Khan was very, very valid. So I don't have anything to add. I think we need to work on all these issues as he suggested. So I don't have any further comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. As a moderator, it was a great privilege for me. Very important question and a very challenging question too today. So just wishing that there is a smooth process in this region. Yes, so no more concern about the emergence of Trump administration in the United States. Okay, thank you very much. Chairman Kang, you now conclude the session.
Okay,
please.
thank you very much. Okay, moderator, Professor O, and today's presenter, Professor Sandip. Okay, I think this topic is very important. Because I'm not Korea, I mean, because not only I'm Korea, but I think the Korean Peninsula issue, I mean, role of Peninsula, is I think very important because we are still, Korea is still technically at war. Okay. personally, today I went to DMZ today in the afternoon because my place is very near. And in April, we have a special program with the Filipino students. I went there to check the site. Okay, so I just look over, the North Korea. Oh, just over there is just around 1 hour from Seoul to this like second largest city, Kaesong. Kaesong is, North Korea, second largest city, is very near, but we could not cross, this wire, okay, all this wire. So that is the big problem already. Professor Sandip mentioned like some factors like the current regional the stability issues, North Korea's like a nuclear program, China-U.S. rivalry, and the Korea-Japan relations, maybe something like history, or the inter-Korean relations. Okay, I think this is really very important, and I really appreciate Professor Sandip's conclusion. I mean, as a Korean, we think, of course, we are very proud of Korea's achievements like democratization and economic achievements. But these days, our future is unpredictable, like unpredictable. I mean, many Korean people are not very satisfied with our politicians, okay, our political leaders, okay. This is, I think, a very big issue. And if I could have more time, I would like to ask Dr. Sandip, I mean, when I read some like the Joseon Dynasty, 27 the kings, we have 27 kings, the annals, all diary, they are preserved here. And I read the summary of that the last 3 months, and I was very surprised. Their dynasty, I mean the era of the king, there was always a series of factions. Just factions always happen. So I thought the phenomena of like leadership, like power games, hegemony game or something, steal the leaders. It is actually very similar phenomena. That's why I'd like to ask Sandip, do you think there is some historical, some reflection or something? But I hope you can read from the Joseon Dynasty, this political situation of all this, the leadership, okay, king's leadership. It's very interesting, okay, because Korea emphasized like bureaucracy and also all this education, okay, education is very important. That's why it's very similar, like elite leaders or the phenomena, very similar. Okay, so we are like looking forward to a very new, real leadership. Okay, real leadership who can like unify or like some embrace. Okay, these two parties. This is our homework, big issue. Okay, it's really polarized these days, as you already, Sandy mentioned, like two sides. Okay, this is our leadership. Okay, thank you again. And so Sandy, Professor Sandy, you will be here. We can have more talks, okay? You will be here in maybe May, right, during vacation. So maybe I will also recommend Professor O. You invite him, his university, okay, like give another lecture, okay, another lecture in person. I'll arrange another lecture in another place, okay? So. And you seems like very optimistic about the future of Korea, I mean the potential. And I thought you are like acted as a spokesperson, like a spokesperson, okay, for the Korea. So I hope that will happen in our community, and will play the very important role. And before closing my, this forum, I'd like to announce next, our forum program 2 weeks later, okay, 2 weeks later, April 10th, the very interesting topic, the Korea's role, another Korea's role with the NATO amidst rising US and European populist challenges to the US rules-based multilateral order. Okay, so maybe today Chalidar's question is a little bit like associated with this topic. And the speaker is Dr. Ian Watson from UK. He's now teaching at the Aju University. Okay, Aju. One time he was here last year as a speaker. So I hope I would like to issue the notice to you, and if you can spare time, I hope you can join us later, 2 weeks later. Okay. So thank you for your joining, participating in this discussion, and particularly the moderator and the speaker. Thank you very much. Okay, so everybody, okay, I should say bye-bye, okay, and okay, take good care, healthy, okay.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you very much.
yeah,
See you again
yeah,
soon.
please,
See you on
okay,
10th of April.
okay, okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Rebecca, will you stay here? We have more talks, or we can
Oh,
have.
yes, yes.
Okay,
That'll
okay.
be wonderful.
Okay, so I have some personal talks with Rebecca. Okay, so other friends, would you please? Okay, retreat. You can dismiss. Okay, let me. This is what.